Imagine looking in the mirror just 30 days from now and not even recognizing who's staring back. Not because your face has changed, but because your energy, your presence, your mindset, they've completely transformed. You stand taller. You think sharper. You respond, instead of react. There's a calm power in your eyes that wasn't there before. And the people around you, they feel it too. Something about you is different, something unshakable. But let's be honest, how many times have you felt stuck in the same loop, trying to break free, only to slide back into the same patterns? Maybe you've told yourself, next week I'll start. Maybe you've waited for motivation, for the perfect moment, for life to quiet down so you can finally grow. But what if that's the lie? What if growth doesn't wait for peace, but is forged right in the middle of the noise? That's what the Stoics knew. They didn't chase comfort. They trained in chaos. They built unshakable minds by stepping into discomfort, not running from it. And today, that same fire, that same ancient wisdom, is yours to use. Not as some abstract philosophy, but as a practice, a daily discipline, a quiet rebellion against the noise of modern life. Over the next few minutes, we're going to explore the habits that don't just change your behavior, but rewire your identity. Not with hype, not with hacks, but with soul-deep shifts that make you unrecognizable in the best way possible. If this message resonates with something deeper in you, something that's been quietly craving clarity, strength, and direction, consider subscribing. It's free, it's simple, and it helps this community grow. More importantly, it's a way of telling yourself, I'm ready to live with intention. Tell me, when was the last time you did something uncomfortable on purpose? Most people avoid it like it's poison. They rush toward warmth, ease, pleasure, scrolling, snacking, avoiding. But what has that comfort ever built? What has it ever strengthened? You don't forge a blade by stroking it gently. You put it in fire. And you're no different. Start your morning with a single chosen discomfort: cold water, silence, fasting, barefoot on rough ground. Not to suffer, but to sharpen. The Stoics didn't wait for life to test them. They tested themselves. Because when the storm finally hits, and it will, they weren't caught off guard. They'd already trained in the fire. So the question becomes, will you? It's easy to tell yourself you'll rise to the occasion when things fall apart. But the truth? We don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our training. And most people are training for comfort. They wake up seeking ease. They react, not respond. They build lives padded with convenience, then wonder why they feel so fragile. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Every moment spent avoiding discomfort is a moment spent weakening the muscle of your mind. And like any muscle, it atrophies if you don't use it. Cold showers aren't about water. Fasting isn't about food. Waking early isn't about productivity. These are drills, mental reps, tiny rebellions against the softening of your spirit. Because real strength doesn't announce itself. It's quiet, subtle, unshakable. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." Discomfort strips away the noise and makes you look inward. That's why people avoid it. It's not the cold, the silence, or the hunger. It's what rises up in the absence of distractions. It's the voice you've been dodging, the fears you've been suppressing, the unresolved truths you've buried under convenience. But here's the thing, facing them is the only way through. You cannot bypass transformation. You have to move through the flame to be forged by it. And no, this isn't about becoming some emotionless machine. It's about building inner gravity. So when life throws chaos your way, you don't wobble. You don't spin out. You stay rooted. Plato once said, "The first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself." That's the work. That's the discipline. Not conquering the world, but conquering your reactions, your impulses, your craving for ease. When you practice discomfort daily, you start to trust yourself. And that trust, it's not flashy, but it's rare. It's the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you've already done harder things on purpose. And here's something no one tells you. The more you choose discomfort, the less control it has over you. You stop flinching at challenges. You stop making excuses. You stop telling yourself the story that you're too weak, too late, too stuck, because every act of discomfort rewrites that story. You begin to see yourself differently. Stronger, clearer, more capable. And that's how transformation works. Not in some big dramatic moment, but in the daily grind of quiet effort, in the choice to sit with silence instead of filling it, in the decision to fast instead of indulging, in the will to walk the longer path, not because it's easy, but because it builds something solid inside you. Socrates believed that the unexamined life is not worth living. And it's hard to examine anything when you're constantly numbing yourself. But discomfort forces awareness. It slows you down. It strips the excess and brings your attention to the now. And in that clarity, you meet the part of you that's been waiting to be seen. Not the curated version, the real one. The one who knows you were built for more than comfort. That version doesn't just want growth. It demands it, not in words, but in action, repeated, relentless, disciplined. So start there. One act a day. Not to prove anything, not to impress anyone, but to build a version of you that you can trust when the pressure hits, because it will. And when it does, you won't need to pretend you're ready. You will be. Stoicism isn't about feeling nothing. It's about being unmoved by the wrong things. It's about walking into difficulty with your eyes open and your spirit grounded. And when you do that, when you train discomfort daily with intention, you become something rare in this world. Calm, composed, unbreakable. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. That's the work. That's the fire. Step in. But here's what sneaks in after discomfort. Pride. That quiet, seductive voice that whispers, "You're better now. Look at how far you've come." And it's true, you are growing. You've started making hard choices. You've chosen discomfort over ease, discipline over distraction. You've begun to walk taller, to breathe deeper, to respond rather than react. But with that growth comes a shadow, the ego. It starts to creep in just as you thought you were rising above it. And that's the trap. The minute you start needing to be right, needing to be seen, needing to prove, you lose what you've been building. Not all at once, but slowly, subtly, like a crack forming beneath the surface. You don't grow because you're right. You grow when you let go of needing to be. Aristotle once said, "Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom." And part of knowing yourself is seeing when you need to be right is just a mask for fear. Fear of being overlooked, fear of being wrong, fear of being vulnerable. But strength isn't loud. It doesn't raise its voice. It doesn't need to win the room. Real strength is the ability to let someone else be wrong and not let it shake you. Let them misunderstand you. Let them cut you off mid-sentence. Let them misjudge your silence as weakness. Say nothing and watch what happens. Not to them, but to you. Your mind starts to settle. Your chest loosens. Your identity unhooks from needing control. That moment of silence becomes your training ground. Not suppression, not avoidance, but clarity. Because the truth is, ego loves the last word. It feeds off approval, dominance, validation. But the Stoics didn't spend their days correcting the world. They spent them correcting themselves. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire and faced constant criticism, once wrote, "You don't have to turn this into something. It doesn't have to upset you." And it's those words, so simple, so profound, that remind us what real power looks like. It's not the clever comeback. It's not the mic drop moment. It's the stillness of someone who no longer needs to defend their worth. They already know it. That doesn't mean you tolerate disrespect or live in silence forever. It means you choose your peace over your pride. You choose to train rather than react. And every time you do, your inner world shifts. You become less reactive, more present, less controlled by the noise around you, more anchored in who you are. Carl Jung believed that everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. So the next time someone triggers you, consider this. It might not be about them at all. It might be a mirror, a chance to see what still needs healing, what still owns too much of your emotional energy. And this kind of restraint, it's not easy. It takes practice, the habit of pausing instead of pouncing, breathing instead of barking, listening instead of defending. Because even if you win the argument, what have you really gained? Maybe a momentary high. But at what cost? Your peace, your presence, your ability to sleep at night without replaying the conversation over and over, thinking about what you should have said. There's a deeper kind of freedom available, one that doesn't rely on being heard, understood, or agreed with. It's the kind of freedom Socrates lived by when he said, "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing." And so each day becomes an opportunity. One moment, one conversation, one chance to let go. When you feel the urge to correct, to control, to conquer, pause. And in that pause, notice how strong you really are. The people around you might not notice it right away, but they'll feel it. There's a quiet gravity that comes from someone who doesn't need to prove anything. And that's rare. That's magnetic, because in a world constantly shouting, the one who can remain still becomes the one everyone eventually turns toward. You'll notice something else too. Life gets lighter. Conversations become less about strategy and more about connection. Your mind stops racing to outmaneuver everyone. Your heart softens, not because you've become passive, but because you've become powerful in a new way. The kind of power that doesn't need to dominate, but simply knows its place. The kind of power that walks away from the noise, not because it can't handle it, but because it no longer sees value in it. That's the depth the Stoics trained for, not just to survive conflict, but to transcend it, not just to manage ego, but to outgrow it. And maybe that's the challenge now. To let pride knock at your door and not invite it in, to sit in a room where someone else is loud, arrogant, even wrong, and remain calm, to recognize that silence isn't weakness, it's mastery. You don't need the last word. You don't need to be understood. You just need to remain true to who you're becoming. And who you're becoming is someone deeply rooted, hard to offend, impossible to shake. That's the kind of strength that doesn't crumble when life pushes back. It bends, it breathes, and it holds its center, always. And at the end of the day, when your head hits the pillow, take one step back, then two, then float up, not in some dramatic or mystical way, but with quiet intention. Let your mind rise out of the room. Drift past the walls. Leave behind the street, the noise, the spinning wheels of your daily life. Keep going until all of it becomes small. Your home, your neighborhood, your city, until you're looking down at the world the way astronauts describe it. Silent, still, fragile. It's in that distance that something powerful happens. That worry that tangled your mind all afternoon, the one that kept looping like a stuck record, from up here, it's weightless. That careless comment that echoed through your chest, it fades into the background. That email, the one you read and reread, twisting its meaning until it hurt, loses all shape and power from above. It's just dust in a giant swirl of life that keeps moving, with or without your tension. Marcus Aurelius did this every night, not to float away from the world, but to come back to it more grounded. You could leave life right now, he wrote. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. That wasn't morbid. It was medicine, a way to let go of the false urgency that builds up like pressure in the mind. He practiced what we now call the view from above, the ability to zoom out and return to perspective. He was an emperor surrounded by decisions, conflict, responsibilities. And yet he chose stillness, not inaction, but stillness. Because when you see how small your troubles are against the backdrop of existence itself, you stop being ruled by them. You don't lose touch with reality. You come back to what really matters. Carl Jung once said, "People grow like plants in the soil of their own past." But what he didn't mean is that you have to stay buried there. Sometimes you have to rise above the soil and look at the whole field of your life, where you've planted effort, where you've scattered energy, where you've allowed weeds of worry to take over. When you float above it all, you start to notice how much of what steals your peace is completely optional. How many hours were lost defending your pride? How many nights have been disturbed by futures that never arrived? How many days have passed where you were physically present but mentally somewhere else, caught in the storm of your own thoughts? The Stoics taught that clarity is power, that emotions, while human and important, are not reliable leaders. They rise fast, burn hot, and often leave ash behind. But clarity, that comes from perspective, and perspective is a skill. It can be practiced. It's not about detaching from life or pretending things don't matter. It's about holding them with the proper weight, giving them the space they deserve, but no more. When you zoom out, Your problems don't disappear, but they soften. They shift from massive boulders to manageable stones. You can carry them. You just don't need to let them crush you. Plato once said that the soul is like a chariot pulled by two horses, one representing rational thought, the other passion. Without perspective, passion takes the reins and drags us through mental chaos. But with perspective, reason begins to steer. And that's what the view from above gives you, not cold detachment, but emotional balance. You stop being reactive. You stop picking up every passing emotion like it's yours to hold forever. You learn to let go, not because you don't care, but because you finally understand what's worth caring about. And so this becomes a practice, not just once, but every night. Not to perform some ritual for show, but to restore order in the mind. Before you close your eyes, let yourself rise. Let go of the smallness that crept into your day. Let go of the anxiety disguised as responsibility. Let go of needing every detail to be perfect, every interaction to be clear, every loose end to be tied. Life is made of loose ends. Trying to tighten them all before bed only wraps you tighter in stress. Breathe. Zoom out. Let things be unfinished. Let the world keep spinning without your worry needing to fuel it. So when night falls, don't carry the day into your sleep like a bag of bricks. Set it down. Rise above. Look at your life from the stars. And remember, you are not your thoughts. You are not your stress. You are not the sum of your mistakes. You are a part of something vast, something still unfolding. Let that truth calm your breath. Let it guide you into rest. And when morning comes, you'll wake not just lighter, but clearer, ready to face the day. Not as someone drowning in details, but as someone who's seen the sky. Now look ahead, not at what you'll do this month, but at what you'll refuse to become. That's the Stoic move, the art of living not through excess, but through intentional refusal. We're used to setting goals in terms of what to achieve, what to chase, what to conquer. But the wiser path might be to turn around and ask, what do I no longer want to carry? What behaviors, patterns, or identities do I need to let go of so I can see clearly? This isn't about ambition. It's about clarity. It's not about adding more. It's about removing what's never belonged. Plan your month in reverse, not by filling it with tasks, but by emptying it of noise. Take a blank page and write what you will no longer tolerate in your inner world. I refuse to explain myself to people who don't listen. That sentence alone can change the emotional temperature of your week. I refuse to chase approval when silence would serve me better. That's not passive. That's powerful. I refuse to perform stress just because the world is noisy. That isn't laziness. That's precision. Most of what drains you isn't what you do. It's what you carry. The tension of constantly trying to be understood, validated, seen, and most of it leads nowhere. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But how can you do that if every day is spent reacting to things that pull you further from yourself? You can't hear your own voice if it's always drowned out by the pressure to explain, perform, or prove. The Stoics understood that freedom doesn't come from doing more. It comes from needing less justification, less performance, less comparison. Because mastery, real mastery, is subtraction. The removal of anything that dilutes your presence, your purpose, your peace. The world will try to convince you that adding more is the solution. More goals, more tools, more hustle. But when was the last time all that more made you feel more whole, more secure, more grounded? Often, it just piles on. It creates a life so cluttered that you can't even see what matters anymore. Aristotle taught that knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. But knowing yourself requires silence, space, the kind of mental room that can only exist when you stop chasing the unnecessary. So take this moment to consider what you're no longer available for, not out of bitterness, but out of alignment. Maybe you're done reacting to every message that buzzes your phone. Maybe you're done explaining your vision to people committed to misunderstanding it. Maybe you're done saying yes when every part of you wants to say no. This is how you protect your energy, not by hiding from life, but by refusing to pour it into things that leave you empty. When you reverse plan your month, you're no longer asking, what do I want to accomplish? Instead, you're asking, what kind of person do I refuse to become? It shifts everything, because that kind of clarity strips away the pressure. It lets your values breathe. You stop trying to fit into everyone's expectations and start honoring the shape of your own soul. You realize that a peaceful life isn't built on achievement alone. It's built on boundaries. Each week, make time for this. Look ahead, not through the lens of tasks, but through the lens of your identity. Who am I when I stop reacting? Who am I when I stop explaining? Who am I when I stop seeking approval? These aren't surface-level questions. They dig beneath your habits, beneath your routines, into the architecture of who you're becoming. Socrates believed that the unexamined life wasn't worth living. But in today's world, we must also say the overcommit, overexplained, overperformed life isn't worth living either. You don't need more goals this month. You need fewer distractions. You need sharper vision. You need more inner quiet and less outer validation. The noise of the world won't stop, but you can choose not to echo it. You can choose not to mirror it. You can walk through it steady, present, intentional. That's what it means to live like a Stoic, not by denying the world, but by refusing to let it shape you into someone you're not. So take the next 30 days not as a challenge to do more, but as an invitation to clear space. Space for your thoughts, space for your values, space for the quiet kind of strength that doesn't need to be loud to be powerful. And when you look back, you won't just feel lighter. You'll realize you've become more yourself than ever, not through addition, but through subtraction. That's where the real transformation begins. Here's how it all locks in. After all the reflection, all the quiet effort, all the small daily shifts, you anchor it with one simple act. Not a dramatic overhaul, not a checklist of 30 new habits, just one. One ritual, one promise, one behavior that marks the boundary between who you were and who you are choosing to become. It can be as small as a silent walk at dawn, where no phone, no music, no distractions touch you. Just you, your breath, your steps, and the quiet of the early world. Or maybe it's a journal entry each night, a single paragraph where you meet yourself honestly, without excuses or exaggeration. Maybe it's the cold shock of water each morning, a brief reminder that you choose what's hard, not because it's fun, but because it shapes you. This is not about perfection. It's about precision, one non-negotiable ritual, done with presence, done with care, done especially on the days when everything in you resists it, because that's when it matters most. Carl Jung once said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." And this is the line that separates the dream from the decision. You don't build identity through scattered promises. You build it by doing the same thing every day with reverence. That one act becomes your mirror, your anchor, your declaration to the world and to yourself. This is who I am becoming. And when you do it enough times, when it becomes less of a task and more of a rhythm, you stop having to remind yourself. You just move. You just do it. The act becomes you. That's when something shifts deep inside. The resistance gets quieter. The excuses start to lose their grip. And in their place comes something stronger, not motivation, something steadier, something deeper. Discipline rooted in identity. Because motivation comes and goes like weather. It's reactive. It waits for the right mood, the right playlist, the right quote. But identity doesn't wait. Identity acts. Identity doesn't ask how it feels. It knows what it is. The Stoics didn't build their lives on motivation. They didn't wait to feel like being calm or generous or courageous. They lived by vow. Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself every morning, not to hype himself up, but to remember who he was trying to be. A ruler, yes, but also a man of restraint, of wisdom, of purpose. He wasn't performing. He was practicing becoming, practicing remembering. Because in a world full of noise, the quietest rituals are often the most powerful declarations of who you really are. So make your vow, not a goal, a signature, something that marks your days like a fingerprint, a stamp you leave behind to say, I showed up today, not because it was easy, but because this is what I do now. That's how you change. Not through scattered sprints, but through the slow burn of consistency, through the act that says, I'm not chasing a better version of myself anymore. I've decided who I am. And this doesn't mean you stop growing. It means you stop outsourcing your identity to your emotions. It means you stop letting the chaos of the day decide how you show up. You've already decided. The act is just the reminder. Aristotle said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act but a habit. So choose yours carefully. Choose one that builds you, sharpens you, steadies you. One that reflects not where you are, but where you're headed. Eventually, this act won't just shape your mornings or your evenings. It will shape your posture, your tone, your presence. People might not know what's changed, but they'll feel it. You'll walk a little more grounded, speak a little less rushed, react a little less. And that's the point. You don't need to announce your transformation. You embody it. It shows up in the way you treat others when no one's watching, in how you carry disappointment, in how you begin again after you fall short. Because you will fall short. And that's okay. The signature act is there not to prove you're perfect, but to keep you aligned. So when you drift, you don't spiral. You return. You recommit quietly, daily, with grace. Socrates once said, "Be as you wish to seem." And maybe this is the modern form of that wisdom. Not pretending, but becoming. Not waiting for a breakthrough, but creating a quiet, steady one of your own. In a world that celebrates extremes, your quiet ritual will feel like rebellion. It will feel like power, not because it changes everything overnight, but because it plants a flag, a line in the sand, a daily reminder that you are no longer wishing for growth. You are walking it. And eventually, without needing to say a word, you'll look back and realize you're no longer becoming. You already are. You don't rise by accident. You rise by choice. Quiet, daily, deliberate choice. And the person you're becoming, they're already within you. Every act, every moment, is a step closer. Stay steady. Stay sharp. And when you need a reminder, this space will be here. Watch the next video on screen. Let it guide you deeper. And thank you for walking this path with Stoic Journal. You being here means more than you know. Until next time, hold your center, trust your path, and keep choosing the quiet strength within you.